Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Retro Recall. I hope you're doing awesome. Today, we have another cool machine on the bench. We have a Compaq Armada laptop from late 1998. And I was really excited to be able to get this in the collection. I paid 30 Canadian dollars for this, and we're going to see if it was worth it. So you know what? We have lots to do. Let's get right to it. Welcome back, everybody. Let's go over this beautiful machine from 1998. So on the very top here, we have our Compaq logo that they would have been using back in the day. Definitely love seeing that logo. I know it's changed a little bit over the years, of course, and Hewlett-Packard purchased Compaq, but it's nice to see that logo. And then we have the two hinges in the back, and they're quite robust. I mean, the design itself and the physical materials are just a very hard plastic. But again, it does feel very sturdy and robust in terms of a machine. And, you know, again, as I mentioned, this Compaq was from late 1998, early 1999, and based on what model there was at the time. So in the front here, we have a couple of different things going on. So you can see the kind of interesting design here. It goes up and then goes back down. If you notice, these two sides here kind of curved outward towards the sides of the laptop, and that's where your palm rests would be. And you know, that's an advantage in terms of ergonomics, but is a disadvantage for something else, which we'll go over in a minute. So on the left side here, we have and I love having machines that have both of these options. We have your 3.5-inch floppy drive built in, and then you also have your CD-ROM drive here. And it's an interesting place they put it. So on the front here, with the floppy drive, it is a modular drive. So as you can see, it just pops right out. And there it is. And that is our floppy drive. So it says Compaq Computer Corporation diskette drive. So, you know, that's really great, but it also has the ability to put in a secondary battery. So on the right here, we also have a battery, which is our main primary battery, which, by the way, still holds a charge, which is absolutely crazy to think after all these years. So it says Compaq battery, and you know, this allowed you to have dual battery. So you're on the road, you're traveling, you're doing things, you want extra power, that allowed you to do that. But this bay here on the right only allows the battery setup. I'll pop that back in. Whereas the left allows you, and has this little flipper window here, you can see if it was just the battery, it automatically kind of completes the look by having that closed. Or you have your 3.5-inch floppy drive that you just slide right in there nice and easily, and you close it off. Now, Dell was really notorious for having the modular type bays, including Lenovo as well. But it's interesting to see Compaq adopting that same nature. As I mentioned earlier, here is the Compaq, the CD drive, and that's all it is. It's a CD drive there. Now let's go around to the right side of the machine, and you can see it's quite thick. And this machine comes in at, as I mentioned, 3.6 kilograms, just approximately 8 pounds, and so it is quite hefty. But you can feel it in the design how sturdy it is. But it's interesting design for sure as you look at this, and in terms of the height of the machine. And you know, let's get my good old ruler out here. And so I mean, we're topping up just over 2 inches, 2.2 inches there in terms of thickness of the machine. So it is quite hefty. So we have additional cooling here. We have some cooling here. I say additional because there's quite a bit on the machine. So we have cooling here, then we have a USB port, and then we have our PCM CIA port here. So this allowed you to have additional adapters for Ethernet or for wireless cards or things like that. So it was really good to have that expansion possibility in these machines. Here we have a built-in 56K modem. That's what the modem is in this machine. So again, for connectivity in terms of getting on the internet at the time, having dial-up modems was pretty standard in laptops. Networking seemed to be a little more rare at the time, and then of course came later. But you could use your PCM CIA slot for that. Popping around to the back, so we have lots of ports, and we know how much we love ports on this channel. Let's start to the left here. So we have an LPT1 port, so that's our printer port here, pretty standard and common on these machines at the time. We have a COM port here, so a serial port for communication for different devices. You know, if you had a Palm Pilot or different connectors, you had that. So really cool to have on the machine, especially, you know, natively versus having to have adapters. Then we have a VGA port, of course, which is pretty standard on machines of this era to be able to hook up an external monitor or a projector. Then we have this proprietary port from Compaq. And this particular port was designed for a port replicator or a docking station is what this would slide into. They called it the Convenience Base 2 was exactly what Compaq called that at the time. So this would slide into the back and they would give you a different array of ports. You keep this closed and you'd have like, you know, a big CRT, or if you were well-to-do, you had the newfangled LCD monitors at the time that were, you know, probably as thick as this laptop is or thicker, and it would allow you to have that on top, and you would dock this computer into that station. So left here, we have additional cooling, infrared wireless port here, so you could print to their various devices or sync to, say, like a Palm Pilot at the time and things like that. So you'd have that port available to you for that purpose, which was awesome. Now here we have the power cord. So the unique thing about this laptop design is that the power, the PSU, is actually built into the machine itself. It's not an external power brick. It utilizes this cord right here and allows you to just plug directly in, and you wouldn't have to worry about that extra power brick as part of the machine or requirements to get the machine plugged in. Continuing on, we have our primary CPU fan right here. So, I mean, you've seen various ports or various ventilation ports around the machine so far, and it has quite a bit of them based on the strategic location of different components in the machine. So, and of course, we have our primary fan here. And on the right here, we actually have our PS2 port. So you can either plug in either a mouse or a keyboard. It's slightly illustrated right here, kind of engraved into the plastic. But, you know, it's really handy to be able to have that PS2 or that mouse or that keyboard connected. Now, arguably, you could use a serial port at the time for a mouse, and you could use this for a external keyboard if you didn't want to have a docking station or you weren't fortunate enough to have a docking station. And on the other side here, we have some additional stuff going on. So we have the other corner of our kind of like our CPU cooling area here in this whole corner. So we have the fan in the back, and then we have additional ventilation here. And then here on this side here, we do have the two ports for audio. So we have headphone jack and our speaker jack, our Kensington lock, which is so standard over the many years that we've seen. And then we also have some volume up and volume down buttons. So if you were utilizing the port with the headphones, for example, you could utilize these two buttons to turn the volume up and down. And we have another latch here for the monitor. Now let's take a look at the inside of the machine itself. And here we are, the laptop all open. And one thing that I notice about this machine that I really like, and something that really stands out for me for more expensive laptops, or like ThinkPad line, for example, more like desktop replacement laptops, is this beautiful anti-glare matte screen. I just love these screens because of the fact that they are anti-glare. So if you're in a well-lit room like we have right now, it's very cool to have this type of screen because it doesn't show the reflection on this. Whereas more of the entry-level machines or more consumer-type machines, you know, lower end, you'd have that gloss screen. So here we have the Compaq logo here with the Armada 1700 written right into the bezel of the screen. We have our two latches here, and overall, this is extremely great condition for a arguably 24 going on 25-year-old machine. So I think it's pretty darn good. Here we have the Intel Inside Pentium 2 badge here. So it is a Pentium 2 processor that's in this machine, and we'll go over that here shortly. Here we have 4 buttons. They're just hotkeys as part of this machine. Using the Compaq software, you're able to use these 4 hotkeys to be able to program the certain things. So if I want to open up a web browser, if I want to open up the CD player, or vice versa, and back and forth, and all those good things, you'll be able to press those buttons and map them to different functions within the machine. And here we have our primary power button, and then we also have an auxiliary power button here. You slide on and off. I believe that one puts it into hibernation mode. And we also have additional lighting up top here. It's not lit up right now because it's not turned on, but we have our hard disk light, our floppy disk activity, our power light, et cetera, et cetera. So we have different lighting up there. And then we have the keyboard itself. And again, really good condition. And to be honest with you, my review of the keyboard in this machine, because you know I'm a ThinkPad buff and I love ThinkPads and I love the feeling of ThinkPads just because they're absolutely legendary, their keyboards. When I started using this and I was trying to get this machine all set up, it just felt comfortable. That's the best way I can explain it is I just started typing and started doing things on it and I didn't have to think, which is really, really awesome to have a keyboard like that. So definitely a close second to the ThinkPad. The only complaint I would have if I was to ever judge this at all is that the keys, even though they're really responsive, is a bit mushy. I mean, there's a lot of good feedback to the key when you're pushing it down. So it tries to keep your fingers up. So you have to, think about what you're doing. But at the same token, it is a bit mushy. So that's my only, I guess, feedback I would have for the keyboard versus, like I compare everything to kind of the ThinkPad keyboard, but it just felt comfortable. So I still give it a positive review. If you remember earlier, I was talking about the sound itself and the speakers. And this here, where the palm rests are, this kind of bezels down a bit. And you can see it kind of like angles down here and angles down here. This is for ergonomics. So that's the positive. So I'm able to put my wrists here, type away. And I think maybe that's the why I felt kind of really comfortable with this machine, because I'm just typing away, I'm doing my thing, and it just feels natural and good. Well, the disadvantage, as I was saying to you earlier, was these are where the speakers are. And, they have relatively decent speakers with the kind of like the holes in the side for the airflow for the speaker. But when I put my hands on here, it muffles the sound. And we're going to go through that in a minute and show everyone. But, that's a disadvantage to me for sure. Okay, I'm going to get this machine plugged in. We're going to turn it on and we're going to go through the setup of the computer. So we have the computer plugged in there. You see the cord. As I mentioned, this does hold a charge. I just don't know for how long, so that's why I'm plugging it in, just to be absolutely sure that we don't lose it during the video. Now, one thing I'll mention in this computer is this was the hard drive that was in the machine. This is an IBM Travel Star, so nicknamed Death Star hard drive. Unfortunately, you can hear it. You can hear the rattle. There's something definitely loose inside. I don't know if heads got loose in there or not. But when I first powered up this machine, when I first got it, it came up the Compaq logo, and this was making some very bad noises, of course. So we weren't able to go any further. Now, one thing I'll call out on this era of machine, including on their desktop line, is that Compaq, based on the model, stored the BIOS on the hard drive. That's right, not a ROM chip on the motherboard or inside the machine. It was actually stored on the hard drive. So if the hard drive became corrupt, you lost the ability to go into the BIOS to change your time, your hardware settings, etc. So there's a whole process to get that up and running. So I'm going to turn the machine on here, and we're just going to hit F10 to go into it, because I was able to restore, I should say, the BIOS for this machine. So the beautiful Compaq logo, and then it comes up here with the Compaq utilities. So the journey that I went down was trying to find the restoration software for this computer, and I was not able to do that. I went on archive.org. I found the Compaq Armada 1750 recovery software. Nothing, it wouldn't work. I popped it in, sure enough, it booted. Unfortunately, it said and detected that it knew it was not a 1750, so it wouldn't work. Then I found the 1700 software, which was great. This was on archive.org as well. So I took the disk and I popped it in the machine, but it wouldn't boot. So this image that's on archive.org is corrupt. It just will not boot. It just, no matter what I did, it would not boot. If you have a copy of the recovery software for the Compaq Armada 1700, please get in touch with me. Let me know. We'll get it uploaded to archive.org, because it's important to preserve this stuff. And if you have it, please let me know. It'll be awesome to get this up and running, because there's other software that it restores more than just the BIOS and the operating system. It actually restores a bunch of what we would call bloatware, but it gives the machine character to have all that extra software to explore. So if you have it, please upload that to archive.org. So the journey I went down was essentially quite a bit. It took me several hours in research on the internet to be able to find these two, basically, I'm going to call them service packs, but two pieces of software. So SP8975 and SP12906. So you put them in a computer, and if you have a USB floppy drive, so a newer computer, I popped them in, I loaded them up, I got them downloaded, and then when you open them up, it walks you through this configuration utility to create these two pieces of software. So it expands them into these. And then it wants you to verify, and it goes through a bunch of stuff. So you pop the disk in, you boot off of it, and the key to doing this is you have to make sure that when you pop your hard drive in there, you do not do anything with it. So you have to have a raw drive. You can't go into F-disk, you can't set up any partitions, you can't get it all FAT32 formatted, blah, blah, blah. Don't do any of that. Pop the drive into the machine and pop this disk in next. Because what it does, it takes about 7 megabytes, I think it is. It actually creates a partition and hides it on the disk. So that when you go in and do an F-disk, because you do have to do that eventually for Windows, it will see that, but it says non-DOS partition. So it just hides it, it keeps it there, and then when you go to create your partition, you're good to go. It utilizes that partition to be able to access these utilities. So I am going to upload these to archive.org because where I got these was not from there. And it was quite a bit of hunting to find this. So I will get those uploaded because, again, I believe in the preservation of these machines, and that's what this channel is all about. Okay, so this utility is provided to help set up and diagnose your computer. You should use this utility when you want to change the computer's configuration and when you want to change or test your computer's options. To continue to the next screen, press Enter. So I'll press Enter. So we have computer setup, computer checkup, so our tests, so you test our hardware, view system information, create a diagnostic diskette. So that's one of these diskettes. So once it's loaded, you can create an additional one. Manage your diagnostics partition. So that's the partition we created, but you're able to go in and manage it, and then we can exit from the utility. Let's get zoomed in on the screen here. Okay, so we're going to go into the computer setup real quickly. It's going to ask to reboot because that was kind of like the diagnostic area, so it's rebooting into the setup portion of the partition that we've created. And it's fairly straightforward. I love the interface that this gives you just because it is so darn retro and neat that, this is the way we did things back then. So system features, so change settings such as your security, power, and boot. These are very critical things you would need, and why it's so critical and important to have these disks to be able to install this software on here. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to access and change all these different features before the computer even starts into any sort of operating system. So we have the Compaq Armada 1700, our Pentium 2 with MMX 266. It says the ROM date is 11/30 of 1999. So I think I said 1998, but it said that these machines were made from 1998 to 1999 based on the different models. They came in the 1100, the 1500, the 1700, and the 1750 of this line. So this is more of a later line, but again, that's probably because of the date range there. We have the base memory of 640 kilobytes, and then our total memory that's installed in this machine is 32 megabytes. And so those 32 megabytes are actually soldered on the motherboard. There's a slot on the motherboard that you can open up, or a port that you can put in an external 128 megs of RAM. So you have 160 megs of RAM installed in the machines. The maximum for this model, the 1750, I believe, gives you a little bit more. But again, 32 megabytes is what's soldered on the board. So we have our date and time, and the battery must be working fine in this because all I did was go in and set the date and time, and it's been working just fine. So we have our power management settings. We have our security management, so set our password for our BIOS and set our password for powering up the machine, etc. Boot management, so to be able to go in here and choose basically what you want to do in your boot order. And our intelligent manageability is just asset tag information. So we're going to hit cancel on that. Communication, change settings for ports, modems, and other communication devices. So again, critical stuff you would need to be able to configure your machine. That's why it's so important that if you have these machines or recovery software to let me know, because it'd be good to have this uploaded. So we have the ECP printer port, we have our COM port information, and this is basically our interrupt request or resources that the machine's using, our fast infrared port, and our Compaq 56K for 56V global internal modem. So that's the internal built-in modem. Cancel there. Storage. So view storage related properties, including hard drive and diskette drive settings. So we have our PC standard floppy disk controller. So this is, pretty standard. And then we have our IDE, sorry. And this particular hard drive that's in here is reading only as an 8 gigabyte hard drive because that's what the BIOS sees it as. But Windows does see it as a true 30 gigabyte hard drive, which is what's installed in the machine. Input device is pretty straightforward. Our IBM enhanced keyboard and our PS2 port for our PS2 style mice. But you can also, of course, utilize that for our external keyboard. Audio, so change sound properties and audio device settings. So in here we have our system audio, volume up or down, and shows our devices available, which are ESS 1869 audio controller interface. That is what is installed. So we have the ESS 1869 plug and play audio drive sound setup. Under video, it says view video device resources. So we'll click on that right now. And so the video card that's built into this machine is the Chips and Tech. That's what it's called, Chips and Technology 65555 PCI graphics controller. I'm not sure exactly how much video memory is on this. I didn't quite catch that when I was doing some research on this machine. But I will tell you, it is not, I'll repeat, not a 3D accelerator. And other devices, so view settings on devices that could not be categorized. So we have our system board resources, our math coprocessor, our AT interrupt controller, all those different things that we'd have installed that are not part of what we were looking at a moment ago. Okay, so that's the configuration there. We're just going to hit exit on that. We're going to have Ted again, and we're going to show everybody what the diagnostic test would look like. Okay, here we are with the system kind of inventory. So under system, it just gives us our general information, showing our Pentium 2 at 266 with our integrated 387 capable, or compatible, I should say, numeric coprocessor. Shows our secondary cache at 512 installed. And so, yeah, it gives us all that good information. And then under our ROM, we have our system ROM, and it also gives us our video ROM controller and our revision, as well as our additional ROMs, which again is the VGA BIOS ROM. Then we have a keyboard, which is just our standard enhanced keyboard, system ports, LPT1, COM1 and COM3, and COM3, I believe, is the infrared port installed. System storage is our 24 speed CD-ROM drive branded Compaq, but made by Machita. And we have a 1.44 megabyte disk drive installed there as well. So here's our hard drive 1 installed, and that is the Toshiba, which is what installed that I had used, is a 30 gig. So you can see that it's detected here, no problem. Okay, under graphics, that is our primary monitor and our graphics card, which is a Chips and Technologies CNT 65555 graphics controller, which we went through earlier. There's our outline of our memory. So we have our 32 megabytes, which is system board, but then we have a DIMM slot 1, which is 0 megabytes. So if you were to pop that in there, it would detect it and tell us how much memory. This machine definitely could benefit from extra RAM, that's for sure. Under audio, we have our ESS audio drive, so our 16-bit sound addresses 220H in our version, so that's all there. And this is great information to have before you even get into the operating system because it helps you troubleshoot and get everything good to go. All right, I think that's enough of that. So we've gone through the complete Compaq diagnostics and setup utilities, which is very critical to show because this is a big part of this machine if you were to get one of these to be able to bring them up and restore them. I'm going to hit exit now, and we're going to go into exit the utility. Yes, and we're going to boot right into Windows. Because you don't have access to the original restoration that this normally would just take care of for you, I have the advantage of it being a newer operating system that probably would have came with this, because if you look, all the restorations show Windows 95 on them, and even the 1750 had Windows 95 on it as well as part of their restoration. Where this is Windows 98, second edition, there's even another layer of drivers installed. So if you go under Device Manager, you'll see the majority of everything installed, minus the Internet Connection Wizard, but that's Internet Connection Sharing, but that's due to the fact there's no Internet connected right now. But we have this unknown device that's here. I believe this is the modem, because from what I've read through all of the different drivers, that's the only thing not showing up under this, and we know there's a modem installed in it. We saw it in the BIOS, we saw it in the physical port, we know it's there, it's just not installed, and I just didn't find a driver for it yet. I was fortunate that it automatically installed all these drivers for me as part of the installation of Windows 98 2nd edition. So under properties here, you can see the display settings. So we just have it set to the 1024 by 768 at 16-bit color. Now, I believe it does go to 24-bit. It does. Yes, it does. Now, the unfortunate thing is if I extend this to 1280, oh my goodness. If I extend this to 1280 by 1024, it doesn't, it expands past the screen. So it will work. It will let you do it, but then you have to kind of like scroll around. The desktop is actually bigger than the LCD panel, so you're having to shift around. This is the only one that actually fits the screen the best way it works. As a Windows-based machine, me clicking around here, I mean, I did say that, additional RAM would be useful for this. It would for sure. And I still stand by that. An extra 128 megabyte stick of RAM, or even a 64 megabyte, or another 32, for goodness sakes, would make a big difference in just using this in your day-to-day. But everything else is pretty straightforward. So we've talked about the machine in a business aspect or like a home productivity type aspect. And I'm sure browsing the internet at the time and going online and playing online games and things like that are all good. But let's talk about the games of the system of the era. One of the things I would have been playing at the time would have been like Doom 2, for example. So one of the challenges I had with this machine in terms of playing any sort of real mode DOS games is the resolution of the screen. So you can see, because this machine, for whatever reason, I don't know if it's because we didn't use the restoration CD where it would pop in additional drivers and allow this to work a little differently. This is the biggest the screen goes. So I'm going to go to Doom 2 for a moment, and we're going to go to Setup. And you'll see the resolution, 640 by 480. And the screen is 1024 by 768. So that's the challenge we're having here. The other challenge I'm having is the sound. For example, in Doom is a perfect example. That's why I went into Setup. So I've tried different sound cards in here. I've tried all the different types. And it is, Sound Blaster compatible. It's at address 220, which we already saw that. And then I'm going to go under Choose Sound Effects card there as well. And Sound Blaster 220, RQ5, DMA1, and 3 sound effects. It should just be fine. So I'm going to hit Save Parameters and run Doom 2. And it starts up no problem. But you'll see there's just no sound. And the sound effects volume's up. You don't hear anything here. And that's very unfortunate. And I've tried all the different sound cards and things like that. So I'm not sure if this is something that we have to do in terms of like there has to be DOS drivers loaded when you first load up the machine, in the config sys or the auto exec files. I'm not sure. And that might be something that would have been part of this machine possibly. Again, I'm not sure. So these are things that having the recovery or additional troubleshooting would definitely help. Okay, that was one of the challenges that I had experienced with this machine. The other thing I'm going to show is, we'll load up another classic title here. So let's talk about another game here. Tomb Raider, number 3, the trilogy. So we have that installed in here. And I'm going to show everybody how that works on this machine. This is another one of those limiting type videos where it only goes to slightly, I think it goes to 800 by 600 resolution, but that's it. It doesn't take up the full screen. So that was one of the disadvantages. And it does give you an option if you had hardware acceleration or 3D acceleration that you could go in and adjust it for that. In the setup, it has it, but unfortunately, I'm unable to select it because the video card itself does not support that technology. Okay. So here we are. I mean, overall, to use the game, it's not terrible. I mean, it seems to be working pretty well. Let's go to a new game. I mean, the sound is pretty tinny, and when you think about it, I'm resting my hands on the palm rest, covering up those speakers. So again, that doesn't help anything at all as well. And here we are with your typical 90s graphics for sure. I'm just going to, there we go. So there we go. We know how to jump now. We can turn around. We can walk. There we are. Okay, just trying to figure out the controls. It's been quite a while since I played this game. But yeah, you can see that, I mean, it is choppy. Like as I'm spinning around here, you can see that it's quite choppy as I'm using it. The specs on the box say that this machine is supported, but again, having 3D acceleration, hardware acceleration would make a big difference in this machine, in this game. Okay, let's jump into Windows again. Okay, we have another game here. We have Jedi Knight Dark Forces 2. It's another game I like to play quite a bit when I was younger. And again, when you go in here and you tell it to analyze your computer, it says you meet all the system requirements. But this is another game that truly takes advantage of any 3D acceleration. I will tell you that right now. It is an amazing game and really looks really good on like a Voodoo card, things like that. So I'm just going to click on New Player. We're not going to do too much because it's really meant to use an external mouse with as well. So single player, and we're going to show everybody kind of like how the gameplay works with the graphics and everything. So here we are, and you see that it's in full screen, but it's only because it has an option to kind of zoom in. You know, it's running at a low resolution, allowing me to play it as well as I am playing it. It's not really beneficial, especially if you're running into battle scenes. You'll see here in a second. I mean, I got lucky there and able to remember the controls. So yeah, I mean, this game, I would say, of the three that I've tried, and I would expect Doom to be better, of course, because of the sound. But I mean, of what it is, it's working fairly well. And I mean, graphically, it doesn't look terrible. Yeah, I mean, overall, it's not terrible. I mean, the speed itself is fairly well, and the graphics seem to be keep up with it. But again, it's because it's running on a low resolution mode, and I just have it zoomed in using the key plus and minuses here to allow you to do it. Of course, the smaller you go, see how smooth that is? Well, of course, he's not happy to see me. There we go. But you can see the difference, right? I mean, that's really smooth. That's something you would expect to see when you're actually using it like on a Voodoo graphics card or 3D acceleration versus something like this, which is a little choppier, but still playable. All right, let's head back to the Windows desktop. And here we are with the $30 Compaq Armada 1700 laptop from 1998, 1999, in that era. My final verdict, I'm happy. 30 bucks I'm good with for a fully working machine. Yeah, I invested some time. I had a spare hard drive. Yes, I could use an IDE to SATA kind of adapter, but IDE to SSD adapter. But again, at the end of the day, you know, I'm happy with this. I'm happy with this machine. It's in great condition. It still holds a charge. It has the ability to do different things. And, it's not like some of my ThinkPads, which even at this time and era, even for a mid-level machine, it has no problem playing the games, has no problem playing the DOS games because of the compatibility and the drivers. This is a little more different. And I'm not sure, again, as I mentioned earlier, if those pre-drivers are required for like the config.sys and the auto-exec files, if they're required to be able to activate certain drivers in real DOS mode. Not sure. Again, that would take additional troubleshooting to find out. But yeah, overall, 30 bucks, I'm happy with it. It brings you down memory lane. It's a really good looking machine. It is very, very sturdy. The keyboard is very comfortable, as I called it earlier. Not like a ThinkPad, but definitely comfortable to use. And the ergonomics of this is really, really nice. The only disadvantage is, of course, when I have my palm is resting on there, I'm muffling the sound. So if you're trying to play games and things like that, or trying to do things with the keyboard, say if I was listening to a CD, for example, you would definitely have some muffled sounds through that process. I only wish, especially where it's a 1700, the 1100 and the 1500 were prior to this, where this model was slightly higher end, I guess in that kind of realm, it would have been nice to have like a better video card installed in this, or maybe a more compatible sound card. For what it was and the decent of the machine at the time, this would have been pretty expensive even at the time, having this machine, especially with a CD-ROM drive and having the floppy drive still built in with infrared and USB capability as well. I mean, it is still pretty decent at the machine at the time. And for 30 bucks, I'm very happy to have this in my collection, and it will serve a purpose. And I'm very happy we're able to restore it. If you do have one of those discs, please let me know. Again, drop a comment down below. Let me know. Very happy to get that archived for us. That said, if you liked today's video, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. It makes a difference on the channel, helps the channel grow. Hit the notification button, change it to all. You'll be notified of new content such as this. Please leave a comment down below. Did you own a Compaq Armada 1700 or something from that era in the series? I really want to hear your comments. I want to hear your experiences with the machines. And again, if you have the restoration software, please let me know. We'll be happy to archive it. I respond to absolutely every one of my comments. I love the interaction on the channel. Always making new content. We'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.